Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here with another Master Duel video for you. So today we're going to be continuing our Season 13 deck profiles. Today we're going to be covering our Dragon Link deck. The 60 card variant is what we're still rocking here. And between the 60 and the 40 card variant, I'm definitely liking the 60 card, I think a lot more. There is some validity to the 40 card variant, definitely, for sure. But honestly, I think 60 cards, just the ability to mill so many cards off of grass, I think honestly of all the grass decks, this is probably just the best one. And this is also one of the ones that can best utilize grass with so many things to put in the graveyard and so many ways to use those resources in the graveyard with other cards of field in hand. It's just by and far, I think, one of the best grass decks out there. We did make a couple of changes to it. Before we dive into those real quick, just want to remind everybody that we did launch our Patreon relatively recently. I keep saying that. It's actually a little over a month ago now, which is kind of wild. But yeah, if you feel like checking that out for some more daily Master Duel content, feel free to check out the description below. It's just $5 a month to subscribe over there on Patreon. It's the price you pay for a booster pack. And you definitely get a lot more value over there than a pack full of filler. We've got video previews over there. We've got Patreon exclusive content, Patreon exclusive games, some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured at the credit sequence at the end of the video there. So if you feel like checking out some more daily Master Duel content, feel free to check out the Patreon below. All contributions are greatly appreciated. Thank you very much. But in any case, like I said, we did make a few updates to our Dragon Link deck, and we finally added the Chamber Dragonmaids and Dragonmaid Tidying. I'm rocking 2 copies of each. I know in the past I kind of talked like, oh, you know, you either use this engine or the Thunder Dragon engine, but that's definitely not true at all. You know, you can easily have room for both engines in the deck. I did have to cut a few cards. I cut the second Nibiru. I cut the one of random Noctovision Dragon that we added, since the Chamber and Dragonmaid Tidying are kind of extenders in their own right. And then I also cut the 2 Forbidden Droplets, which I honestly might try to fit those back in the deck. When I was doing this last session of games with Dragon Link, it's funny, I didn't think Forbidden Droplet would be missed, honestly, but I did have a few situations where I'm like, oh, you know, I think access to Droplet, like even knowing that I can draw a Droplet would be nice, you know, but extra deck is still the same. Since we're still rocking the Thunder Dragon engine, we of course still have the Colossus in our extra deck, and I really like Thunder Dragons in this, in Dragon Links. I really like having access to this engine. Even aside from being able to put a Thunder Dragon Colossus on board, which can end games by itself, let alone in addition to your other, you know, end board monsters like Borreload and Borreload. But on top of that, the Thunder Dragons, rather, they can act as very solid extenders in their own right as well. And there have been a lot of games where I've used them as extenders for like more link summoning, not even just for the Thunder Dragon play there. So I've been very satisfied with them in this variant of the deck. I like it very, very much. As far as the Chamber Dragonmaid and the Dragonmaid Tidying, they haven't come up too often for me, but the idea behind the engine is that, you know, Chamber Dragonmaid can offer another level 4 non-tuner dragon, which this deck likes to have. It can be sent for, you know, Striker Dragon, but when it's summoned, you get to send the Dragonmaid Tidying from your deck to the graveyard, which can offer another extender by banishing from the graveyard in order to bring back that Chamber Dragonmaid. So, yeah, just having that additional extender, like even one additional extender, can be very, very helpful for this deck. More than just the graveyard effect, this actual effect of bouncing a dragon you control and a card your opponent controls is not entirely irrelevant either. But it's actually going to come up here in the games that we're going to be seeing after we talk about the deck here a little bit. I don't know that I actually have too much more about the deck to say. I did think about including the Black Metal Dragon in order to, you know, make the Red Med a bit more of an engine, but I didn't have room for it, and I think I would still rather have both the Dragonmaid engine, the Dragonmaid, Chamber Dragonmaid and Dragonmaid Tidying, and the Thunder Dragons, I think, before the Black Metal Dragons. If I was going to play the Black Metal Dragons, I'd probably also try to make room for 1-for-1 as well. So it'd probably have to be, you know, either of those 2 engines being cut. But again, I think the Dragonmaid engine and the Thunder Dragon engine are both better in this deck than Black Metal Dragon. I've tried Black Metal Dragon in the past, and I'm just not super impressed with it. Like, Red Med's a good card, don't get me wrong. Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon is a good card, but it's still unnecessary that, like, even when I have opportunities to search for it or, like, set it up in the graveyard, I usually just don't, just because, like, there are better things I could be doing with my turn. I've actually thought about cutting the Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon altogether from this deck. It is, like, That and, you know, maybe one other card I can see cutting to put the Forbidden Droplets back in, but I'm going to keep it for the time being, just to see if, like, I'm kind of just waiting to see if a situation comes up where I actually find this card useful, because I don't really think I've even summoned it once, to be totally honest with you, but we'll see how it goes. Alright, I think that's enough about the deck itself. Let's go ahead and break it down card by card, and then take a look at some gameplay. We're playing 1 PSY Frame Driver, 2 Effect Veiler, 2 Rokket Synchron, 3 Maxx, 2 PSY Framegear Gamma, 3 Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 2 White Dragon Wyverburster, 2 Black Dragon Collapserpent, 1 Fairy Tale Snow, 3 Rokket Tracer, 2 Rokket Recharger, 3 Starliege Seyfert, 2 Chamber Dragonmaid, 3 Thunder Dragondark, 1 Thunder Dragonhawk, 2 Thunder Dragonroar, 2 Absorouter Dragon, 1 Chaos Dragon Levianeer, 1 Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, 1 Nibiru the Primal Being, 1 Harpie's Feather Duster, 1 Foolish Burial, 3 That Grass Looks Greener, 3 Chaos Space, 1 Dragon Ravine, 1 Boot Sector Launch, 3 Quick Launch, 2 Call by the Grave, 1 Crossout Designator, 3 Infinite Impermanence, and then 2 Dragonmaid Tidying. And that is our 60 card main deck. Extra deck is going to have 1 Thunder Dragon Colossus, 1 Borreload Savage Dragon, 1 Chaos Ruler, the Chaotic Magical Dragon, 1 Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, 1 Guard Dragon Pisty, 2 Striker Dragon, 1 Heretic Seal of the Heavenly Spheres, 1 Dragonid Knight Romulus, 1 Delindrous Dragon, 1 Quad Borreload Dragon, 1 Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, 1 Axis Code Talker, and then finally 1 Borrel and Dragon to round out the extra deck. Now let's go and take a look at those games. Our first duel here is going to be against Branded SVF. It looks like a fairly standard build. I was going to say, well, except for Cosmic Cyclones, but I feel like Cosmic Cyclone is becoming more and more standard. I know I did recommend it in my video, but I feel pretty about main decking that card. I would rather main deck Harpie's Feather Duster before Cosmic Cyclone. Speaking of which, we did happen to open it here, but not that we really need it. This hand is a little weird, but we can definitely still combo with it. I'm going to start with the Rokket Tracer for the Striker Dragon in order to get the Boot Sector launch. From here, I am going to have to use the Boot Sector launch a little bit earlier than I would normally like to in order to summon this Rokket Tracer from my hand, but all the same, I'll just go ahead and pop that for the Rokket Recharger. And then I'm going to sync these for the Chaos Ruler, Chaotic Magical Dragon. I'm mainly looking to bin a light monster so I can get this Collapserpent online, but the opponent's got an Infinite Impermanence. It's going to unfortunately have something else in mind for us there. Well, our effect negated, that's what it's going to have in mind, so. But I actually do still have plays here. What I can do is I can pop my Chaotic Ruler and add the Recharger back to my hand. That'll trigger the Recharger's effect, allowing me to discard it and then bring the Rokket Tracer back to my field. Now I can send those for the Quad Borreload Dragon, and that's going to let me go into a level 8 Synchro play. Basically, like, you know, the interruption of that Chaos Ruler did stop me from, you know, pretty much extending my board beyond that, but that doesn't mean I can't set up some Omni Negates here. And I actually, potentially with this Thunder Dragonhawk recycle, could have, like, found another extender to let me combo out even further, but unfortunately all we found was another Collapserpent, so. Yeah, I'll use the Collapserpent to add a Wyverburster here, as I, of course, go into the Borreload to set up the Omni Negate. Now, I thought about maybe summoning Wyverburster and trying to summon something else, but keep in mind, because we use Rokket Tracer, we're just locked into dark effects for this turn. That's one of the reasons why we're kind of limited what we're able to do with this opening hand, so I can't go for the Heretic Seal here, nor can I go for the Dragonid Knight Romulus at any point, really, so. Unfortunately, I'm just going to have to end on a Borreload Savage Dragon, but our opponent is starting one card down because they used an Imperm, so as long as I can time this Omni Negate pretty well, then yeah, I think we'll be good here. Now, the opponent uses a Cosmic Cyclone on the Borreload's equipped card, the Quad Borrel, but destroying the equipped card actually doesn't really do anything in terms of stopping the Omni Negates. If Borreload Savage Dragon is negated, then I believe the equip falls off and the Borrel counters fall off, if I recall correctly. But if the opponent is just getting rid of the equip card and not negating the Borreload Savage Dragon, the Borrel counters actually stay on. The card does not need to be equipped for Borreload Savage Dragon to do the negating. The only time the equip really matters is to check for the number of Borrel counters. Once the Savage Dragon has these Borrel counters on it, then it can just use those to negate. It doesn't need the equip monster anymore, so. Cosmic Cyclone doesn't really do a whole lot there. Opponent's gonna, okay, so this move I think was actually pretty good on the opponent's part. It's gonna look really weird. But I think it was pretty good. So they summon the Edge of Chain, run it into the Borreload Savage Dragon, and then go to search. I'm going to negate this search, right? Because I don't want them to get any card advantage, or especially not a polymerization. And I figure if they're going to, you know, summon this, move to battle phase, and run into my thing, this is probably their only play they've got, right? No, main phase 2, they actually drop a Branded Fusion. Very, very good play on my opponent's part. Obviously, if they had just dropped the Branded Fusion during main phase 1, I easily negate that. Like, I obviously just negate that. But by doing that play with the battle phase first, where by battling the Edge of Chain, it made them look a lot more desperate than they actually were, which made me a lot more willing to use my negate in a situation where maybe I shouldn't have. And even if they... like, even if I hadn't negated the search, you would have gotten, you know, the poly, they could have fused, and at that point I probably would have just negated the polymerization. In any case, it's a very, very good play on my opponent's part there. They're going to use the Branded Fusion to, of course, set up the Rebellion. I don't really have any kind of response, so I'm going to have to let it resolve. Gonna have to let them set up the Mirror Jade plus Brandon Red here. Yeah, it sucks too because they're gonna be able to get to, or they're gonna be able to banish my Borreload Savage Dragon before I have a chance to use their Borreload counter too. So, I mean, it's annoying, but it's not the end of the world by any means. We've got 2 very live cards in our hands, so, and we also still have the Recharger here on the field that we can potentially make use of. So, also, I am very envious of my opponent's Royal Mirror Jade. I very much wanted one of these. So. We ended up peeling grass off the top of our deck because we're just the luckiest player in the world. And then our opponent just conceded after that. I don't think that was at all a concede-worthy reaction from the opponent. I don't know. The thing is, like, yeah, like, my prospects were looking pretty decent even without the grass. And with the grass, my chances of winning just skyrocket. At the same time, though, I almost had this feeling of, like, come on, like, I wanted to try to play this Mirror Jade in Brandon Red. Can you give me that opportunity, please? Like, I don't know. It's like, it's funny. I think most people wouldn't complain about the opponent conceding early like that, but when I'm here trying to make content, being like, oh, can I actually play through this board, like, for the channel? I actually, you know, sometimes I'm, like, a little, like, just let me play it out. But, I guess, you know, all the same, we'll take wins. So, it's kind of a recurring theme I've noticed here on the channel, too. Just early concedes. Let that be a lesson to all of you. Like, if things look hopeless, just stick it out for, like, at least part of the rest of the turn, right? Like, at least wait until they have, like, answers definitively. My opponent didn't even let the grass resolve here, for Christ's sake. Like, I could have easily whiffed, but whatever. It's all the same to me. It's a victory. So, yeah, that's going to be it for this game. Let's go and move on to the next one. Alright, this time we're playing against Sword Soul Tenny. Looks like this variant is teching some Floodgate type cards, playing Anti-Spell Fragrances and Rivalry of the Warlords. So we're going to be taking the first turn here. This is a fantastic opening hand. Pretty much everything in this hand is great except for the Harpie's Feather Duster, but, you know, whatever, it's fine. Yeah, I'm going to use a Seyfert to get a Collapserpent here to start off our plays. I think the main thing that makes this hand so great is that we already have 2 rocket monsters that we can just summon off the boot sector launch. So we don't even have to really, like, set that much up. Like, it's funny because I'm not even going to really have that much to do with, like, my Dragon Ravine and my Absorouter. I think I'd still get that set up anyway to add a Rokket Synchron because, like, there's no reason not to, but I didn't even really need to do this part. Although, to be fair, I did still need a Leap 2 on the board to set up my plays, so it's still fine to go for Romulus here, I think. And then we get the Wyverburster Surge, and we get the Absorouter. Like, it's still right to do this play, but we didn't need to, because, again, we already opened Tracer plus Recharger, so very nice there. Like I said, I'll send Absorouter anyway, just to add the Rokket Synchron, but I don't really have plans to use this Rokket Synchron at all this turn. That's honestly mainly just setting up for the next turn, if it ends up coming to that there. So, yeah, like I said, I'll use the Boot Sector, get out the Tracer and Recharger. And I kind of weirdly have, like, a leftover activation of Tracer's effect. I just, in general, end up having, like, a leftover body on board, so normally I would have to get a rocket monster here in order to, like, make the Delinger slide, but because I already have the Recharger on board, I can actually grab the Seyfert from Banish. But be mindful, if you're doing this play and you don't have the extra rocket monster on board, you have to get a rocket monster back there, otherwise this combo won't work. the Delindris won't bring itself back if a Rokket monster isn't special summoned, so. Or actually, it's not even necessarily that, it's also that Delindris takes 2 Dark Dragons, that Seyfert is very much not a Dark Dragon, it's a Light Dragon, so. I just wanted to point that out, because I could see the scenario where I'm, you know, watching a video like this, and I see the person do that, and I don't pick up on that nuance, and I'm like, wait, they got Seyfert, the combo worked, why didn't it work for me? It's because I already had that extra Recharger on board, so. Okay, so this kind of baffles me, right? The opponent throws at an Imperm, and I remember, okay, this looks really weird. Let me explain myself for a second. So, during the actual game, when I was playing through this part, my opponent kept getting prompts to respond, and based on the prompts to respond, I was like, it's gotta be Valor or Imperm, it's the only thing that makes sense. But then they didn't Valor or Imperm me, like, at any point during my play, so I'm like, okay, maybe it's something else. And then I started to get a little worried that it might be Nibiru, so I was like, alright, let me drop the Borreload Savage before I drop the Borreload here. Like, yeah, I'll only get a Link 1 instead of a Link 2, but at that point, if they've got Nibiru, at the very least, I won't have wasted my Borreload on it, right? But no, it was actually an Imperm, and my opponent could have used it so many other points during my turn. Like, if they'd used it on the Striker Dragon, like, I wouldn't have been able to do anything at all, honestly, so. I don't really know why they waited until Borreload Savage came out in order to do the Imperm, but I'm totally cool with that. That is a-okay with me. Because that means I still get to make my Borreload, it'll still be live here. I don't get to bring back a monster this turn because the Borreload Savage Dragon is already negated. I can't negate it again to bring back the Tracer, so. Anyway, opponent's going to start off with the Ashina here before going into the Monk of the Tendies. So I suspected they might be trying to go for a Vishuda here. Maybe try to pull one from the deck, but they actually have it in their hand. Not that it matters either way, because Borreload can't be targeted, as well as not being able to be destroyed. So I'm going to Ash Blossom the Ashina here. That might look a little weird, like that might seem like a little weird time to use Ash Blossom, but against Sword Soul Tenni, the only other real time to use it is against the Emergence search, because Shisha will pretty much always be chain blocked when it's searching. So now I know my opponent can get a level 8 Synchro out, if they manage to get the Adhara on board with the Ashina. At this rate, even if they have a Sword Soul monster in hand, I can still just negate it with the Borreload. So, again, that might have looked like a bit of a weird Ash Blossom, but Sword Soul Tenni really doesn't have that many opportunities to use Ash Blossom aside from Ashina and Emergence, most of the time. Yes, they are going to link away the Vishuda for another Monk. I suspected they were probably trying to bounce my Borreload, but didn't realize they couldn't target it because they ended up putting the Savage Dragon back in my extra deck, which is completely fine with me. That's a-okay. So they set a card before passing, so I am really glad that I did end up bouncing, or that I did end up negating that Ashina there, because then they weren't able to get a level 8 Synchro. I'm going to play assuming that this face down card is Blackout. Not that I really have to play at all, because I'm just going to Harpie's Feather Duster it, but I'm just assuming that's what this face down card is as soon as they set it. It was actually Rivalry, but whatever. Yeah, as soon as the Rokket Synchron gets its effect off, I'm going to use it in order to just, or I'm going to use the Borreload, or Borreload rather, to negate it, just to have something to negate, because my opponent, you know, obviously can't negate non-effect monsters, so. Yeah, I think the Rokket Synchron, I think one Rokket Synchron is actually all that's left in my deck as far as Rokket monsters go, so I think it was actually wrong to use that Absorouter's effect. I think I would have much rather had the Tracer, would have rather had the option to Tracer for Synchron and then potentially Sync for the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. So I don't think I should have actually used the Absorouter effect there, but it didn't matter. The opponent can see it anyway, and I was probably going to find lethal anyway. I don't think it super duper mattered, so yeah, there's that one. Let's go ahead and move on now to the next game. We are once again facing off against Brain Despia. It is once again a pretty standard variant, save for, and again, you could consider this standard at this point, playing Cosmic Cyclones. You know what I think is really funny? Let me just say this real quick. I get so many comments telling me to take out Nibiru because it's not good in this meta, and yet I see people playing Cosmic Cyclone in so many decks, and Nibiru is definitely better against more decks than Cosmic Cyclone is. Let me tell you that. This is just my daily PSA of don't let runic fatigue get to you. Don't let it like cloud your judgment, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't know, because I kind of can't help but wonder like how many people are like facing against runics, playing this specific tech against them, losing more overall as a result against other decks because they're playing specific tech against Runics, and then being like, fuck this Runic format, I can't get wins. Like, it's a very vicious cycle. It is often, you know, times very self-perpetuating as well. But anyway, so my opponent's going to start off here with a Masquerade play using the... Oh my god, I'm so sorry about that. The cursor was, or the menu was freaking out there. Yeah, they start off with the Polymerization. I'm just going to fire off a Maxx in response to that. The Poly is going to be for a Masquerade. Turns out they were just trying to get their Aliber live, but I've got the Veiler and the Imperm, so I was expecting Call by here. It actually ended up being Decimated Comedy, but either way, I still have the follow-up response to make sure that they don't get their search for the Branded Fusion. Of course, as I'm doing this, I'm sitting here the whole time thinking, like, just watch them have the Branded Fusion in hand anyway. But no, fortunately for me, they actually don't, so. They do have another Polymerization, but of course they search that with the Edge of Chain there. And I kind of figured this was going to happen. They're just going to go for a second Masquerade. So I do have to be mindful here, is what I was going to say until I rip an Imperm off the top of my deck, because what can I say? I'm just the luckiest player in the world. So yeah, because I get to Imperm one of these Masquerades, I now get to do less thinking. I still have to be mindful of, you know, how many effects I'm using and, you know, removing this Masquerade before I'm out of effect activations, but it's definitely not as bad with only one Masquerade as it is with two, so. Yeah, if you're wondering why I didn't lose 600 off the Absorouter there, it's because Absorouter's effect to summon itself is not an activated effect, it's just an inherent special summon. It's like Cyber Dragon. Yeah, taking a lot of damage here, but I think it's worth it. I'm coming up on a point where I'm about to remove this Masquerade from the board anyway, so. Yeah, I decided to add the Thunder Dragondark to potentially banish the Thunder Dragonroar here, but I actually made a mistake here. I miscounted the actual number of activations I had left, and for that reason, you might have noticed I actually didn't activate the Collapserpent's effect. I didn't use Collapserpent's effect because, like, I was planning on bouncing this back to the extra deck with Nightmare Unicorn, or, like, removing it with Nightmare Unicorn. I know they're going to use Decimated Comedy in response to me using Nightmare Unicorn's effect, but I thought I only had one more effect activation, but it turns out I actually had two, so I could have actually used the Collapserpent's effect and gone down to 200 life points instead of the 800 I'm about to go down to, and that actually would have really mattered here. That would have let me banish the Thunder Dragonroar to summon it. I would have been able to do another level 8 Synchro, and I would have been able to summon the Thunder Dragon Colossus as well, because this would have let me special summon a Thunder Dragon for my deck, and I could have used the Thunder Dragondark in my hand. So I actually did mess up pretty badly here by miscounting that. Yeah, instead I have to kind of awkwardly just go for Access Code Talker here. Yeah, this would have just been lethal this... No, I don't think it would have been lethal this turn, because my opponent still gets to bring back multiple Masquerades, but, like, you know, obviously it's still better to have the well, really, I guess the only thing I missed out on here was Borreload Savage Dragon, now that I'm looking at it, because I forgot I do actually get the Thunder Dragon Colossus online anyway. Oh, but then I could have also, but I could have negated one of the Masquerades, and I think I would have had additional body as well. Maybe it actually would have been lethal. Well, here's the other thing too, is this Aliber, right? Like, I end up call buying it, but if I'd been more mindful and maybe not well, I don't think I could have gotten around not triggering that Aliber. That was the thing. I was gonna say maybe if I had been more mindful and not triggered that Aliber, I could have called by a Masquerade instead. I feel like I had the opportunity to win this turn, even despite my opponent potentially being able to bring back multiple Masquerades. I think somewhere in all this, it would have assumed that I would have drawn the call by anyway as well, but I think somewhere in all of that I might have had an opportunity for lethal there. But even though I don't have lethal, you know, I do still have a 5300 access code, my Chaos Ruler, and also the Colossus up. And we even actually managed to get this to set a Dragonmaid Tidying as well. This is nice because when my opponent goes to summon a Vert here, with the Maxx and the Masquerade, I can just flip up this Tidying before it even gets a chance to activate its effect. returning it and the Chaos Ruler to our extra deck. So I guess mine gets banished, but you know, all the same, that's gonna lock my opponent out of the duel there. Well, not lock them out of the duel, it's just gonna be their last move, and I happen to counter it. So, yeah, Dragonmaid Tidying's actual effect coming in clutch there in that game. So we have one more duel to take a look at. Let's go ahead and jump straight into it. Alright, so this last duel is gonna be against a 60-card Sword Soul Tenyi deck, which is definitely a first for me. It's not playing Grasp, so I don't know that I really understand what the point of this deck being 60 cards is, except to, like, play every possible card you could play in Sword Soul Tenyi. There's some deep cuts in this deck, too. Like, I saw some... I guess Triple Tactics Talent isn't that deep of a cut, but it's definitely not something you typically see in most Sword Soul Tenyi decks. So, the opponent starts off with what seems like a bit of a bricky hand, setting 2 cards and passing. And hey, one of the cards they bricked with is Galaxy Cyclone. It's actually going to be pretty good here, getting my Boot Sector launch. But I don't know why actually I activated Boot Sector launch first. Not that it really would have mattered. They would have had the Cosmic Cyclone anyway, but... now I'm going to summon this Maxx to try to see if I can just, you know, get the Tracer off that way. But nope. Opponent's got an Imperm as well, so, I mean, I'll just attack with the Maxx pass. I thought about linking, actually. I could have linked into Dark the Dark Charmer Gloomy, or, you know, potentially like a Striker Dragon or something. So I did think about doing that rather than just, like, leaving my Maxx in attack mode, because the Quick Launch is going to destroy my monster during the end phase. But I ultimately decided, I was like, I'll just keep my extra deck the way it is. That's fine. Like, Dark doesn't get anything here. It would just be to add 1,350 attack points to the board. And a League 2, to be fair. But I was like, this is fine. We'll just leave it. So my opponent did top deck a Shathana here. So they are going to get to go for a Monk of the Tenyi at the very least. I was going to say, though, like, yeah, go figure. My opponent opened a really breaky hand in their 60-card deck that doesn't use grass or benefit at all from being 60 card. I don't get it. I mean, maybe they just wanted to play a 60 card Sword Soul deck, which I guess if that's what you want, go right ahead. I won't stop you, but I'm also suffering the 60 card Brick Curse here, as you can see. It is one of the inherent disadvantages to playing a 60 card deck, is that you're just less likely to draw the cards that you need when you need them. As is very much evidenced here, as I continue to draw more and more cards that I'm just not able to use. I don't have enough. Like, if I had one more Dark or Light monster in the graveyard, I could at the very least summon this Levianeer, but it's actually pretty unlucky for me to, I was going to say, yeah, for me to have not drawn any kind of action, you know, in this many draws. And here, you know, Quick Launch is definitely a good draw. But I was pretty convinced, like, now they're going to have some kind of a response, right? Like, surely they will. But they actually don't somehow. So I do suspect one of their face-down cards is Blackout. I'm trying to be mindful of that. But yeah, I finally get to set up the Chaos Dragon Levianeer here. And also the Thunder Dragondark as well. I'm fine walking into a Blackout if one of my cards is Colossus and then is going to be unable to be destroyed. Although, to be fair, I'm going to have to summon the Thunder Dragon monster before I get a chance to Colossus, but the opponent actually turns out didn't have it, so, yeah, I thought I was going to be baiting out their play there. Oh wait, they did have it, what the, alright. They just chose to, I forgot they had it. I just assumed they didn't. I just assumed my opponent was, you know, playing well. They had the droplet as well. Okay, I shouldn't say they're not playing, like, very poorly here, but they could have, I mean, they could have just blacked out my monster plus the Chaos Levianeer, and then I couldn't have done anything, right? Instead, they just left me with a Colossus, which is going to, like, massively reduce their ability to come back. I don't know. I guess, to be fair, maybe they weren't... But at the same time, it's like, I was going to say, maybe they weren't expecting the Thunder Dragon package in Dragon Link. But at the same time, like, if you see a Thunder Dragon monster drop on the board, you gotta know Colossus is coming, right? I would think so, but... Oh, and they just concede after that. Wow, you know, it's funny when these games were played actually a couple of days ago, so, like, you know, when I saw a 9-turn game, I was like, wow, I don't remember having that much of a back and forth, and I'm seeing now why I didn't remember. It actually wasn't that much of a back and forth. It was mostly just 60-card brick fest, the game, but fortunately I managed to unbrick more quickly than my opponent did, so that is going to be all for the game, so let's go ahead and move on now to the outro. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching all the way to the very end of the video like this. That means a whole lot to me. Not just personally, but it's also a great way of supporting the channel as well. If you're interested in supporting the channel in other means, you can of course feel free to comment and or subscribe right here on YouTube. I'm always looking to the comments section. You guys leave some pretty awesome feedback as far as like constructive criticism goes when it comes to deck building, gameplay, channel content, all that stuff. So feel free to leave your opinion down there. I will be sure to take a look at that there. And then subscribing is going to be the best way to get notifications of when these videos drop. That does happen every day, by the way, so if you're looking for daily Master Duel content, you've come to the right place. And there are more places where you can get some daily Master Duel content. If you check out the description below, follow the top link over to my Patreon page. There for just $5 a month, which is as much as you pay for a booster pack. You'll find a lot more value than a pack full of filler over there. We've got some previews for content upcoming here on the channel. We've got some exclusive games that are only posted over on Patreon over there. We've got some Q&As, and then you can also have your name featured in this lovely credit sequence where I thank all of the people who are helping contribute over there on Patreon. It's a huge support to the channel, and it really means a lot as well. So thank you everyone who is donating that is featured here on screen. And again, you know, it's not just a pure donation, you do get some more daily Master Duel content over there just for being a part of the Patreon. But I think that's about all the time that I have for today's video. Once again, I just want to thank you so very much for sticking all the way to the end of the video. Again, it just means a lot as I do put a decent amount of work into getting these videos out every single day. But that's about all the time that I've got for now, so without further ado, this is Xlex. I'm signing out, and I hope you have a fantastic day.